Morning, folks. I'm feeling significantly better. Probably sounding roughly the same. Still got a head full of, we'll call it stuff. For now. But, actually, I know I'm still not 100% because I can hear how much louder I'm being than usual. Oh, get in there, you miserable. Oh. One tiny detail. Anyway, Thinking Man's Thursday. Gonna do the best I can with this. Going to keep it short. Mostly because I don't want to strain my voice. But, let's see. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Check out my Rumble, Subscribestar, PayPal, Sultans, Discordant Dragons. Yeah, let's get all that out of the way first. Excuse me. Yeah, so I'm watching Liberal Hive Mind's video about the Simon Ateba, Karine Jean-Pierre back and forth. And I'm aware that Simon has done this sort of thing before. That said, been disruptive, I mean. That said, isn't one of the tenets of the left to be tolerant of the cultures of others? To accept that not every culture acts the same way in public? Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's ironic that a Western misogynist like me, Western chauvinist like me. Yeah, okay, maybe I was a bit misogynistic too, but that's beside the point. But it's ironic that a Western chauvinist like me is taking the side of an African man, being that he's from a different culture. But he's not really. His culture is, if you take a look at him, he dresses in the classic Western style. Suit, tie, looks very prim and proper. Well, very proper anyway. Very well put together. But very professional, as a Westerner would describe it. But if you look around at the picture, and I did post a bit of a gag, I stand with Simon, or I stand with Ateba, meme on Twitter earlier, just for fun. And for the record, the topic today is tolerance. If anyone actually needed me to spell that out, I think you guys are smarter than me in general, or generally, and I think you already sussed that out. But if you're going to be tolerant of someone, there's only so far you can let that tolerance run. So yeah, I understand Karine's frustration with Simon. I don't sympathize with her at all. She took the job for the people she works for. No, you don't get any sympathy from me, honey. Sorry. Women in politics don't get treated any different than men. Which means you need to be treated like men. Not that men need to be treated more gently, so that it evens out. We don't drop standards. You rise to meet them. And in the case of Karine Jean-Pierre, she has repeatedly ignored Simon. So I understand where Simon's frustration is coming from as well. Now, situational tolerance matters. So yeah, in this situation, Corinne Jean-Pierre had a specific thing she wanted to get said, because she had celebrities in the room and wanted to deal with them, wanted to deal with the reason they were there. That said, the guys who stood up against Simon were his fellow journalists. So esprit de corps doesn't matter anymore. Standing up for your fellows. See, this is not supposed to be a case of journalists siding with the people who are feeding them their stories. That's not what's supposed to be happening here. You're supposed to be investigators as well. So Simon, doing his actual job, which is asking questions, whether they want those questions asked or not, is actually doing God's work, to use a phrase. And yeah, I understand Simon may be a little more disruptive than the average reporter. Good for him. You don't get anywhere by being quiet. Who taught us that? Well, that was the left. The ones who were out in the street screaming Black Lives Matter, or hands up, don't shoot, or any number of other idiotic slogans. Trans rights are human rights. Things like that. And for those who have an issue with me kind of poo-pooing that phrase, trans rights are not human rights. Because the trans already have all the same rights. If they're asking for something that other humans don't have, they're looking for privileges, not rights. You know, like the right to use any bathroom they want. I don't have that. I don't have that privilege. I can't... Look at me. If I walked into a woman's bathroom, do you think there would be problems? One would fucking hope so. If I walked into a girl's change room in a swimming pool, I would fully expect to have the shit kicked out of me by the nearest man. Excuse me, still a bit sick. But if we're going to be tolerant of someone else's culture, there's a line where you have to say, okay, you've hit the line of our tolerance. You have hit the point where our tolerance no longer extends past it because you are infringing on the way that we behave in our culture. You are not in your culture at the moment. If you're an outsider, you need to accept that. And that's not to shit on Simon Ateva. Not at all. But I understand that Jean-Pierre had a specific agenda. And I understand where Simon's coming from. It's just that this particular piece of optical illusionry made it look like Simon was being disruptive out of nowhere. There's history there. Look at the way the man dresses. He dresses like a professional reporter. Or a professional journalist, sorry. And he actually behaves like a journalist. I've read some of his work. It's very good. But how did Milton Berle put it to Richard Pryor? Pick your spots or something like that. Basically, know when your opportunity arises. Granted, Simon may very well have intentionally disrupted this particular conference to get his point across. And that's a perfectly acceptable tactic. Sometimes. Once. But if we're going to be tolerant of other cultures, we also at the same time have to say, okay, stop. You have passed the point of tolerance and you are now infringing on our culture. You are not in your own culture. You need to stop. Whether it's the way that Arab men negotiate, and they're extremely aggressive, which is great. I love having a hard haggle with someone. I've been threatened with bodily harm over a price for something when I was arguing with an Arabic man. Well, he was a Cypriot, Turkish Cypriot. But that culture, right, it's fine. For me, I can handle it. And I was aware that it was one of their negotiation tactics. And I said to the guy, I said, okay, you know what? If you're going to threaten me with bodily harm, we're going to stop here. I understand you're negotiating, but this is where this is my price. And I'm making my final point here. So it's either this price or nothing. And we ended up negotiating a little more. He settled down because he understood that he was in a different culture as well. We were both in Alberta. Different cultures for both of us. But we came to a mutually acceptable, at least I think so, outcome. He purchased the item. I received the money I wanted. Fair. However, my girlfriend at the time, who was with me, was extremely uncomfortable and thought that I was in some form of physical danger. And after the negotiation had concluded, and the gentleman had wandered away, this was at a craft fair, she mentioned to me that she was really worried for a second that we were going to come to blows. And it took her saying that for me to realize, oh, I see how the perception of that is being taken. And perception can be manipulated very easily. But let me stay on tolerance. I'm a little scattered, well, a little more scattered than usual, because I'm not feeling the best. Oh, another heads up as well. Again, scattered, sorry. Friday will be the regular For Fuck's Sake Friday on Rumble. Sunday I'm going to do my live stream. I don't know yet if I'm going to go back to YouTube or not. Probably not. So expect to find it on my Rumble channel. That's rumble.com/c/Ardent Party. That's the channel, which I have 45 subs on right now, I believe. And I love every single one of you. The more people who come to my Rumble channel, the more easily I can start stepping away from YouTube. Please. I would dearly love to simply be able to go, there's nothing on YouTube that isn't on Rumble that I want to watch anymore. Click. Goodbye, YouTube. But if we're going to be tolerant of others, there comes a point where that tolerance has to run out. It's fine to tolerate the Muslim, the devout Muslims' requirement of praying 5 times a day at a workplace. That's fine, if they make up those hours. That's where I have a problem. If they're taking 20-minute breaks 5 times in the run, well, okay, not 5 times in the run of a workday, obviously, but let me see, dawn, noon, night. So those 3 wouldn't affect workday because they should be praying on their lunch break. Especially during Ramadan, because they're not supposed to be taking a lunch break. Or, more accurately, they're not supposed to be eating during the day. But there are 2 points during the day, otherwise, where you're supposed to get 2 breaks anyway. So they can take their time to do their prayers then. Tolerance. Now, they might need slightly extended breaks. I don't know how long it necessarily takes a Muslim to pray when they go to pray. But, you know, work that out. Work the extra time in. But if you look at a Muslim and go, okay, you lost X minutes, we'll say half an hour during the workday that other people were working, but you had to stop to pray. If they're given that half an hour and paid, and other workers are not, then that's not tolerance. That's favoritism. It's the same as if you have one group of people, we'll say women, who need, and women have biological needs that differ from men. We're all aware of this. Oh, sorry. Just mesmerized by the smoke rising in the corner of my camera for a second because I just opened my ashtray and I'm going to have another cigarette. But if we tolerate the different biological needs of women, for example. They may need to spend extra time in the bathroom because of their menstruation. Who knows? And when I say who knows, I mean who knows what factors may actually apply. But if they're not required to work that extra time off, but I am because I don't have that need, then I'm being discriminated against. More accurately, they're being shown favoritism. That's not tolerance. And something the left is known for is showing favoritism and calling it tolerance. But it's not. You're creating a privilege. For example, the idea that punctuality is whiteness or white supremacy is completely anti-white. It's discriminatory towards white people. But more importantly, it's the soft bigotry of low expectations. You are saying, by inference, that you don't believe black people are as capable of being on time as white people. You call my shaven-headed ass what, a racist? What? No. Tolerance is when you go, okay, you need extra help. No problem. But that means you need to do extra work. Right? Whether you have a learning disability or a physical disability. Tolerance means, yes, we make allowance for that. Privilege is when you make allowance for it and give them a break because of it. No. I've met disabled people who are just as capable of a certain job as I am. They may need extra time to get to the job. One of my friends, for example, was on crutches because of a spinal, congenital spinal defect. So it took him a lot longer to walk from the parking lot to the office. Not an issue. Didn't have a problem. But when the workday ended, he had already worked 10 to 15 extra minutes beyond what the rest of us had because he wouldn't smoke during work so that he could spend, say it took him 5 extra minutes to get to work from the parking lot to the office on time. He always made the morning on time, and because he was a little slow doing some things, he worked a few extra minutes. Either 3 extra minutes into each break, so he took 12-minute breaks instead of 15-minute breaks, or he would work half of lunch. It depended on how he felt. There were times he'd eat lunch at his desk while he was working. Let's see if this works today. Awesome. I thought that was empty. But the point I'm most trying to make, and I'm coming up on 20 minutes, so I'm going to finish off here. If you're going to be tolerant of others, you have to expect and require that same tolerance towards you, so that you don't create a situation where one side is getting favored. So if someone has some benefit that everyone else doesn't have, there has to be balanced effect somewhere. Ideally, the person who is being showed favor is going to, on their own initiative, do more to make up the difference. Personal responsibility. Whether it happens or not, it's hard to say. But yeah, I'm all for inclusion, actual inclusion, making sure everyone is treated fairly, not necessarily equally. And I'm really starting to come around to Spoon's attitude that equality is bullshit. But anyway, folks, I hope you're having good days. I hope you continue to have good days. And dear God, pray for me as I'm... No, I'm just kidding. But rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye.